Okay. Hello, guys. It's been a while. I've missed you. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been, I think, a few weeks. But I had a good excuse. It was final season at MIT. And as you can probably tell from the different layout, I am not in my grad dorm. This is actually my childhood room. So this is where I grew up. I'm back in Canada, back in Montreal, just to see some family, some friends for a week. And then I'm starting work again at the Sensible City Lab back in Cambridge. But yeah, there's a lot to cover. And it's been a while, so I'm a bit rusty with these videos again. But yeah, this is my room. This is my workstation. This is my bed, my window. There's nothing crazy, but yeah, this is where I'm shooting this video. Compared to the other videos on this channel, it will not be a very specific kind of topic. I think I just wanted to do some updates because a lot happened. A lot has been on my mind. So it's a bit for me to kind of like get a, mental reset and also like reflections on just this past year. So a few updates. Like I mentioned, I'm in Montreal. It's been since Christmas that I've been here. Before I was in Boston. And then before coming here, I had my finals. It was a really stressful time. Really like just pure locked in. At some point I was like a hermit in my room, just like studying nonstop. And then it's been a year done of MIT. So there's also like, maybe we should like recap that or have a little breakdown of my thoughts after studying 1 year officially at MIT. So yeah, maybe we'll start with the finals since that's the most recent one. So the past 2 weeks, I've just been studying for my finals. I'm studying architecture for those of you who are new to the channel. So I had a few exams. I mean, most of the things we have for finals in architecture are not really like exams. We don't really take exams. They're all project-based, which is a good thing because I personally hate taking tests. I used to be a physiology major, like pre-med, and I used to have like the worst exam taking skills. I just would always mess up and I always forget everything I memorized during exam day. So it's a blessing and a curse because you can spend as much time as you want on projects, but also you can spend as much time as you want on projects. So you can just spend like so much time and you have to learn how to manage your time. And it's a good skill to have, learning how to prioritize things, setting deadlines for yourself, learning how to present all the exams we're taking. We have to present our work. There's a jury, there's critiques. You can work in teams sometimes. So yeah, it was intense. And a lot of Uber Eats were ordered during that time. But we finished, we pulled through. And so I finished my last exam on, I believe, Wednesday of this week, or last week, I should say. And after that, it was just like back-to-back birthday parties. Like all my friends there was a party on Wednesday night, party on Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday night. So it was just back to back. I got like no sleep. So imagine just getting barely any sleep for finals and studying for that. And then after that, just everyone's birthday party just popped up. I think everyone was like waiting until people were done with exams. So I was just, I wanted to like take a break from all the studying, go out, get a bit drunk, and it was fun. But I had my flight, I believe it was yesterday morning, and the night before I had like 2 hours of sleep. It was like one of my best friend's birthday party. Was really drunk, had an early morning flight. So I think I was still drunk when I woke up and then had my flight. And then my brother picked me up from the airport. He showed me around his new place here in Montreal. But it's nice to be back. So that was like a crazy ride. And it's probably why I didn't have time to like record any videos for this channel, because at some point I just wanted to live, and not worry about like, oh, what kind of content or idea should I make? I would have ideas, I would write them down, but then to actually sit down and do this and then like record and maybe edit a little bit and then post it, like my mind was not there. I just wanted to like, disconnect from social media and just like enjoy time with my friends. And also, the finished with school and all that stuff. So anyways, now it's summer officially, and I have a few plans lined up. Like I mentioned earlier, I will be working officially in Boston at MIT. I've gotten an official letter for an RA-ship, a research assistantship at the MIT Sensible City Lab. They specialize in smart city. They do a lot of machine learning, computer vision. They work with AI and try and understand like urban dynamics and cities and like how people interact with the cities. And there's urban planning involved, urbanism, architecture, all that kind of stuff, mobility. I can maybe share some of the projects I'll be working on if I'm legally allowed to. I'm sure it's fine, but yeah. So that's going to be happening. I'll be working, I think, 20 hours a week, which is considered full-time since I'm a student here. So I'll have a lot of free time to focus on this channel. And I had some ideas with some friends who, they want to be part of the video. Maybe I'll do some podcasts or like some conversations and discussions, or like a one-on-one talk with some of my friends on some topics. I also had some ideas of maybe kind of, I'll keep that a secret, actually. I'll just let you know that like this summer, I'm really trying to focus on this, be more consistent, and experiment with other kind of video formats, or I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, so that was pretty much like the last few weeks at MIT. I really missed Montreal. So coming here was just like, I've just like been walking around in the city, driving around, which I miss doing because I don't drive in Boston. I just bike. I didn't bring my car here. So I'm just like here, driving around, getting stuck in traffic, living my old life that before studying in MIT. So that it's really fun. Seeing my family, seeing my brother. And then today I planned my whole week, seeing all my friends. And I have a pre-university or like high school reunion this week. So I'm actually going to be seeing a lot of old friends this week. And yeah, so just planning out my week, because I'm not here for long. I'm just here until like Saturday. I fly back to Boston. So it's very short, but I needed to come back before starting work full time. So so that's the update with Montreal. And now I think for the rest of this video, I really wanted to take some time to reflect on the 1 year at MIT, because I think a lot has happened. I also know from some of the conversations I've had with some of you guys, that some of you are interested in applying to MIT or knowing about how the campus life is like, how the vibe is, and if you should come here, if it's worth the investment, what's the cost of living? Is it easy for international students now with everything that's going on with the new Trump administration? So I think I'll take some time, because it's also good for me to kind of reflect back some of the pros and cons of studying at MIT. And yeah, so where should I start? By the way, I don't plan any of these. I just had some sticky notes with some notes before shooting this. And this is all off the dome, just pure improv and pure raw honesty. So, and it's also very late. It's like 1:30 in the morning. I've been postponing this video all day. I was thinking all day, like, what should I be doing? I should start uploading again. Anyways, tangent. MIT. So to give a bit of context, like I mentioned, I'm a Canadian student from Montreal. I studied architecture at McGill University. I did and before that, I studied physiology at the same university, McGill. And I studied that for a year. I did my whole health science in high school, thinking I would become a doctor, did the whole pre-med thing. A lot of my friends were in that route. I did a year in physiology, hated memorizing like all the biology and all the chemistry, like all that stuff. And I realized like I had to switch. I had a friend who invited me to an architectural studio back when I was still studying in physiology, and fell in love with like the vibes of the studio and the creativity and people making stuff with their hands and building and sketching. And sketching was like my main thing when I grew up. I was always sketching, so decided to apply. Got rejected the first time actually, so I had to reapply. Got it eventually because my GPA was so bad in physiology, so I had to reapply. I was really persistent, finished 3 years at McGill in the architecture program, took a year off to work. And at the time, while I was studying, I was also lucky enough to work for a company, a startup that came from MIT. It was like a MIT spin-out. It was a student, or actually it was 3 students and a professor. The students were all they were in between the Department of Architecture, Urban Studies, and Real Estate. And the professor also was kind of like between all these departments. And so they got along. They started this urban design firm. It was called like an Urban Design and Innovation. And because the students were like, they came from different cities. One came from Dubai, the others came from China. They had initially an office in Boston. And then after COVID hit, they decided to go fully remote. And then they have hubs in China, Dubai, Rotterdam. And now they're starting to to open one again in Boston. And I'm very close with the founder and the other founders as well. We chat sometimes. So they're looking to open again in Boston. Giving you some context of how I got led to MIT and why I decided to apply. So I was working with them while I was doing my undergrad studies and, learning some urban design. I'm not formed or trained as an urban designer. So I had to learn quick. Luckily, the founders or the partners of the company, a lot of them came from the same university. A lot of them came from McGill as well. So and some of them were from Montreal. So we kind of bonded over that. So I worked with them remotely. It was super flexible. A lot of the work they do is in partnership with some MIT labs. So all the way from media lab to the real estate department to architecture, urban design. And it was mostly like working on smart city, a master plan, whatever smart city means. It was basically like urban design master plans, very innovative, a lot of backed by a lot of research. We do some competitions sometimes. But most of the projects were done in China and in the UAE. So in that part of the world, because like that's where all the money is and that's where all the big projects are and big investments. Like they're growing very fast. So that's the kind of work we're doing. Some projects were completely new designs for new cities. Some were adaptations or redesigns of cities, and some were like all the way to like speculative and very bold kind of visions. So I kind of enjoyed doing it because it was fun to do something very bold and very like dreamy, and they had a lot of budget. In urban design, it takes a lot of time, so it's not the kind of project you would see like, physically manifest itself in like a few years. It takes like decades for these things. So we're low key, like we're consultants, like design consultants. So learned a lot, learned so many skills, how to work in teams, how to pitch, how to sell yourself, learn about marketing, learn about like assembling pitch decks, design, obviously, working with real estate developers and all different types of multidisciplinary teams, from engineers to biologists to, golf experts to sustainability experts, designers, architects, like all these kinds of people. So that was fun. I enjoyed doing that, but they're really the ones who, after talking to them, and they, like I mentioned, most of them went to MIT. I asked them like, oh, could you, help me out with maybe applying to MIT? Some of them wrote some letters. They helped me like make my application. I also talked to some friends. It was like a whole journey. I can maybe make a separate video of like showing my applications for those of you who are interested in architecture. It's very niche, but I can maybe show like my portfolio, my essays, some stuff like that. But applied to, basically I worked for a year. And before graduating from undergrad, I applied to 2 schools. I applied to Harvard and MIT, got into both in the architecture department, in the Masters of Architecture program. And then Harvard gave like almost no funding. Like I had to basically pay like all of it. It was like $50,000 I had to pay out of my own pocket per year. I was like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be there. Whereas MIT offered like 80% coverage and 100% if you're able to get like a teaching position or a research position. So I was able to get a research position, and now it's covered 100%. And they also cover living expenses. And that's something that's quite common with MIT. Which is it's a huge blessing, is that they really care about their students in terms of finances, but also in terms of everything else, like mental health and, services, healthcare, all that kind of stuff, right? So, they really try to cover most of the expenses, because it is very expensive to live in Boston or in Cambridge. It's something to note, because in the beginning, when I came, especially in Montreal or in Canada, where, as a local Quebecois citizen, school or university is like extremely cheap. It's $2,000, or I would say $4,000 a year Canadian, which is like around $3,000 US a year for university costs for tuition. In the US, most of you know it's extremely expensive, $60,000 a year, usually, US. And so if you don't have any scholarships, or if you don't have any, if it's not covered by your university or by sponsors, I don't think it's worth it, because unless you can pay it off somehow, but the loans will take you years to pay off. So when I came to Boston, my whole year, I lived like a monk. I was like super frugal. There's like, the nice thing about MIT is like they have a lot of free food around campus. So there's some tricks and tips, like you can sign up to some email lists that will tell you in real time if there's free food in certain buildings on campus. So my friends and I would like sign up to this. There's free food, we go there. Or sometimes you kind of know like, okay, there's like a recurrent meeting or recurrent conferences, or like there's lunches every Wednesday at this building, in this room. You can just like sneak your way in, or you get emails by people that tell you that there's free food, and then everybody runs to get some. And then you can also get some free swipes at the dorm food halls in the cafeteria. You can bring your Tupperwares, and I was doing all that stuff to try to save on money, because it's very, very expensive. The rent is incredibly high. And the food as well, like just going out, and inflation and the economy now is just crazy, right? So something to think about if you are thinking of applying is that it is very expensive to live in Boston. But anyways, that's basically how I got my way into MIT, through friends who got me into a job. And then at the job, there were people who came from MIT and studied there. And I was put in contact with some professors and that kind of stuff. So biggest advice, it's really cheesy, but it is really who you know. That comes from my own experience, because I do know some friends who applied and they didn't have any work experience. So you don't need work experience necessarily. A lot of them have come straight from undergrad. They graduated and then they didn't take any gap years. They just went straight to masters. But for us, our application was, we needed a letter of or 3 letters of recommendation, I think 3 to 4. And then you needed to write 2 essays around like 1,000 words each. And then your CV and your grades, like transcripts. And that was pretty much it. So I think the most important thing is like the letters you write, obviously, that you can work on. Yeah, it has to be very specific to what you want to, what's your vision, why you want to study at MIT, explain it really clearly and very well. But I also think, like, obviously grades, that's just a cutoff. They just take your grade. And then if you're under the cutoff, they don't even look at your application. But if it's over, then you pass, and they will look at the rest. Oh yeah, and the portfolio, sorry, I forgot that. For us, you need like a 30-page portfolio with like some creative projects you've worked on. But I personally think that the letters of recommendation are what got me, because the 2 professors that wrote my letters went to MIT before. One of them like taught there even. The other was just a PhD. But that definitely helps, because any familiar names really helps. That's just academia is like a bubble. It's a bit messed up, but it's like they're all buddies. They all know each other. And if they see that, okay, this, my friend who studied here with me, or who was a professor, or who was my professor, recommends you, then I trust you. It just gives you more credentials. But yeah, so that's like application wise. But again, I'll go more in detail in another video, specifically for architecture, if some of you are interested in that program. But okay, let's talk about my first impression after a year studying here. So for those of you who don't know, MIT is a institute. So it's technically not a Ivy League like Harvard and Brown and all these other universities. So it operates very differently. It feels very independent. It gets a lot of funding from the government, because a lot of their funding, or a lot of the money that they gets to fund the labs at MIT that mostly work in the defense, so in military research. So a lot of labs have, a lot of money that goes into like nuclear research or nanotechnology, or it's a technology-based school. So it's, the meme is that a lot of the students are very nerdy. They're, very, very academically like strong, especially in the undergrad programs. They're just like on a different level. Now for the grad programs, I think it's a bit different. Like you can tell, like, okay, the older students like have a bit more experience, or they come from different backgrounds, especially in architecture. And in my program, it's less quote unquote nerdy. And I'm not trying to make fun of the other students, but it's a very like, you kind of get the vibe that it's not the most social university. Like the party scene is pretty much dead. You're not really there to quote unquote have fun or socialize. It's mostly a place to work, study, meet incredibly smart people. It's very intellectual. Like you meet very nice people in different conferences or in courses and labs. So in terms of like getting exposed to like very interesting research or very interesting students and professors. It's a playground. Like I remember the first few weeks of the first semester where you get to choose your courses. It's basically like a shopping list or like a shopping cart. You can go to any courses that you want. No, it doesn't matter what program you're in. You can like, let's say I'm in architecture, I can take courses in computer science at the media lab, in mechanical engineering. There's even like history or like arts. Like there's like a lot of different courses you can take. Some very, very creative courses as well. Like just the names that they have are just so interesting. Like there's one course called How to Make Almost Anything. And in that, it's a media lab course. And in that course, you literally learn every week how to make something new from scratch, all the way from electronics to building robots, to building sensors, to welding, to 3D printing, laser cutting. If you don't have any experience in that, it's very good, like intro course, very popular. And there's another one called like a variant of that, which is called How to Grow Almost Anything. And it's same concept, but applied to like molecular or synthetic biology. So you're working in labs and you're kind of working with like inorganic materials and that kind of stuff. So in terms of like courses and intellectual curiosity you can nourish, it's a dream. I felt like a kid in a candy store. It's like super stimulating. You learn so many new things and it can be overwhelming at first. Like I definitely got burnt out or people get burnt out because they, especially in the beginning, they take on so many courses because all the courses look fun. And then halfway in the semester, you're just like, oh my goodness, I took too many. So you either drop them, which you can, which is nice to have that flexibility, or you just keep going and just burn yourself out. So yeah, that was definitely like the highlight, I think, or one of the highlights of MIT is just how much there is to consume. It's a never-ending, never-ending like stimulation for people who are curious. And there's a saying that the kind of slogan or the quote that people use at MIT is they refer to studying at MIT as like drinking from a fire hose. That's the liner. So it just gives you an idea of like the vibes, Apart from that, another great pro of MIT is that there's like no hierarchy or very, very little bureaucracy, which is something I personally experienced when I was studying at McGill. I had ideas for like a student journal, and it was like, student run, and I wanted to it was like very entrepreneurial. I wanted to do things on my own, and I wanted to talk to like the professors and get people involved and some collaborations, and you get dragged in those email lists, and there's a lot of gatekeeping where you have to talk to this person, and then if you want to talk to them, you have to go to this person and this person, and because departments don't talk to each other, it's like very hard to communicate to a person you want to talk to. You kind of have to climb up this kind of like a structure, this hierarchy. But at MIT, it's very flat. And you hear that often from people who are like, if you have an idea, if you want to collaborate on something and you need someone from a different department or professor, you don't need permission. You can just ask them, and you can email the professor very easily. You can even go to their office. They have like an open door policy where like anyone, if you're an MIT student with your access card, you can access like almost any building. And so you can really like meet anyone you want. And you can collaborate with people from the different departments in biology and mechanical engineering, robotics, AI, computer science. So it's very, very open. I've tried applying that, and it's been working for like some startups and, trying to take classes here and there. So that's like one of the biggest pro of MIT is how flat the hierarchy is and everything's open. If you are willing to do something or start something or project, you can talk to anyone and they will be open to help you, which is amazing. Another a thing that is less desirable, or like that's less fun in general, like I mentioned, is that it does get pretty depressing in the winter. So I came in in September for the fall semester. Boston, Cambridge, it's beautiful in the fall. But then as it gets colder and colder, you start to see less and less people outside. I think it's kind of, especially near MIT campus, people usually stay inside and work a lot. So there's not really this like culture of like being outside and just like seeing a lot of people like just hanging out. And in general, Boston is a very transitory city. And you hear that often, where like whenever there's a break, if it's spring break, Christmas break, summer break, you see these waves of people just leaving. You can tell when there's a break, there's a university break, because you just see less students and less people on the streets. Especially like I remember in the winter break, in January, we have something called the Independent Activities Period. And the whole month of January for MIT students is optional. You can travel, you can either be outside of Boston, inside of Boston, you can take courses that they have like special courses only for that month. You can work on your own projects, you can teach a course even if you're a student. And they have all these things you can do, or you can just like continue and extend your Christmas break and only come back in February. So it's very nice to have that flexibility. And I think only MIT offers it. But I stayed because I was taking a class at Sloan, the School of Management. And there was no one. Like I came back right after the New Year's, like in early January. And also, I also stayed because at that time I was working on a startup with my friend. And I was part of a startup incubator at MIT. So they were like offering workshops and everything. So it was like a reason for me to stay as well while taking another class. But I remember like, first of all, it's really cold. It's snowing. There's not that much to do anyways in the city. Like Boston is a small city. And there's just no student. There's nothing, there's no parties. Like everyone's probably back home or, so it was very sad. And I remember like right after the IEP finished and then classes started again for the spring semester in February, I was already so drained because I was like working full time on the startup and then taking the classes and then jumping back into classes again without any like formal break, just like added on to me. And it was too much to handle. And I actually burnt out like crazy. And then the whole month of like March was just like super brutal. So I recommend that, taking breaks are very important. Don't neglect that. Even if it's, just taking a step back from work or for a few days or for a few weeks. That's something I had to learn, is that like, even though the opportunities are there and it is stimulating, it is important to take some break and for yourself and relax here and there. So that's what happened in February, January, February, early this year. But yeah, that's something in general, is like every time there's a break, the city becomes a ghost town. And it's kind of a weird place. It's like that. A lot of people ask me if like I would live in Boston long term or like after studies. And I don't think so. I think like the city's a bit too transitory. It's a place where people commute in and out. People always fly in and out of Boston. It's very international and people come from all places around the world. So it's hard to establish like relationships. Like I know dating in Boston is very difficult unless you have like a full-time job and you're like a permanent worker. That's usually like in biotech or in fintech. That's what most people do here in Boston, like the older folks. But for students, it's very tough to kind of establish yourself in Boston, at least from my perspective. So yeah, so that's something to think about. But in terms of like short term, just for studying, it's amazing. What else? In Boston, I mean, the location is amazing. Like, if you ever look at a map of MIT or Harvard, Harvard is like closer to the center of Cambridge, which is a beautiful area, very New England architecture, like a lot of bricks, very, very green, a lot of parks, very social, a lot of like commercial buildings, coffee shops, restaurants. It's very vibrant. Definitely lots to do. MIT, on the other hand, is closer to the river, the Charles River, closer down south. It is closer to Boston because of how close it is to the bridges going over the river. And so your proximity to Boston is literally like a 5-minute bike ride away. And the campus itself is like longing the whole river, which is like prime real estate. It's especially when it gets like prettier outside, you can just like after class, just take your bike along the river. And it's beautiful. It's just like, and there's a library called Hayden, which is one of the newer libraries. And it literally has like a view on the river. It's like one of my favorite places to study because it's just like, first of all, it's only for MIT students. So you don't have like a lot of crowded people coming from everywhere for like Boston Library, for example. But that one is like just for students at MIT. And then you have amazing view on like, there's like a lawn and then there's like the river and then there's Boston on the other side, which is just like the best. You can't get better than that. So the proximity to the river, I think, and to Boston is definitely like a plus to study at MIT. And yeah, that's definitely a pro to keep in mind. The obvious, I mean, the opportunities I mentioned, like there's always hackathons, events, workshops, a lot of conferences, a lot of like lectures you can attend. That's, I think, not just MIT, but Harvard in general. The making culture, I mean, those are all things that are like pretty obvious about MIT that you kind of go there because of that, with like all the fab labs, the maker spaces. It's an old industrial site. So like I mentioned, like with Harvard, it's a more pristine New England high society kind of vibe. MIT is like, it used to be an post-industrial site. So it has like a railroad passing by. It has like old factories, old warehouses made of bricks, a lot of nuclear like labs here and there, like nuclear fusion labs. So it just gives that vibe where it's like very, very industrial, and everyone's just like in the lab working with their hands. And so if you're someone who loves tinkering and building and just hacking things, MIT is like the best place because they have so many resources for anyone who wants to like build stuff. And just, yeah, you can take classes. Like I took a glass blowing class the other day during the break with a friend. We made like some glass marbles. There's wood workshops. You can work with metal. You can work with what else? You can work with plastic. Yeah, you can 3D print. You can laser. Like there's so many things you can do, and you can just take a simple class no matter what kind of student you are. So that's definitely a pro. And yeah, I mean, that's I think pretty much like the pros and the cons of MIT, I think. And yes, and then I think definitely one of the reasons, or the main reason I came to MIT, and it kind of has to do with like what I was saying about like the cost of tuitions, is that, you know, university in the US is very expensive. And if you're someone like me, you're in your 20s, I'm 25, and you know, you want to build some wealth, you want to have some freedom for yourself, maybe you're entrepreneurial or you're looking to be like financially independent, university can be a huge decision because it's very expensive. There's the opportunity cost, especially when you're young, and especially with like the technology out there, like AI, with software advancing, and how easy it is to build a startup and to be a creator or to, make a living without any formal credentials, without like any formal educational training. It's very hard to make the decision or the jump to pursue a master's degree or to pursue a PhD or, just continue school even, or to drop out instead. So that's something I considered many times, and, take it with a grain of salt, but I thought many times about if I should drop out of MIT because of the fact that my program is very long. It's a 3.5-year program for a master's. I'm also studying architecture, which is ironic because I don't necessarily want to be not necessarily, I don't want to be a formal architect. And I'm very transparent about that with people in my class and sometimes professors, if they ask me, and my friends, I just tell them, I don't want to be an architect, but I'm studying architecture because I think the program itself is very diverse, very multidisciplinary. I love design. And also it's because it's at MIT. If I'm being frank, it's just because of the resources and the access I get as an MIT student, but not necessarily to be trained and then graduate with a diploma in architecture to work in an office or to start my architectural practice building homes or designing homes. So I'm saying this because maybe for you it's a different program. Maybe it's chemistry, maybe it's mathematics, computer science, whatever it is. But for me, the reason why I decided to stay at MIT, or I'm telling myself to stay, is because of the connections, the network, the access to all these incubators and the funding that they have for people with ideas who want to build something, who are entrepreneurial, and they want to be connected to people. And I've talked about this many times in my other videos, that the people are really what's the most important. The courses you will take won't define your career. Maybe it will be the professor you have in that course that will define it, or the students that you meet in that class and you work with might define your career. But the actual the content itself, the information you get from a course or from a lecture doesn't really matter as much anymore, because you can just pop a podcast, you can read books for free online, watch videos, and almost form your own curriculum and be educated like 5 times faster for free, no cost, on your own, without any friction. So then university becomes a different platform. It becomes a platform for socializing and for collaborating and meeting people and, being exposed physically in the same room with like-minded people with similar goals and dreams. So I'm saying this because if you're in this position where you're like, should I study here? Should I study there? If I'm already studying, what should I be doing? Should I drop out? Obviously, only you can tell. But I think for me, I decided to come to MIT because I knew that I wanted to start my own thing. Whatever it is. If it's a startup, I tried. It failed, but maybe something else will come out. You learn a lot through that process. I also started this channel during MIT, so maybe that might work. There's a lot of things that you can do as a student when you're at a university, and you don't need permission. And so don't think that the courses or the program you're studying or what certificate or what credentials you'll have at the end of your graduation will define your career, or what internship you make or you do, or, what skill sets you have. I think all of that is like very, very, it's a very outdated model to think that like, okay, you're going to go to this system, the university, you'll get knowledge, you'll get trained, you'll get technical skills, and then you'll be pumped out of that system, and then you'll be work ready for the industry or for whatever company or startup or whatever. I think that's very outdated. The reality is like you will graduate and then you'll have to relearn everything again, because every company, every scenario is imperfect. It's different. You need to learn how to adapt, how to socialize and work in teams. Personal skills are super underrated, something you rarely practice unless you like do things outside of class, like joining hackathons or, you know, doing like side projects with friends and that kind of stuff. So yeah, really, I think for me, MIT was like, it's just going to be a place where I meet incredibly smart people. And it sounds bad, but the classes are like, they're like the last thing I worry about. They're just like, I'm just checking off my assignments. I have to do my due diligence. I have to pass my courses and try to learn some stuff and try to enjoy it and make the best out of it. But the best thing is making time for myself outside of class and learning things that I want to learn, meeting people I want to meet, and working on projects that, you know, like this YouTube thing that nobody's forcing me to do, but I want to do on my own, because those are the things that will grow alongside you and that will actually give you wealth. And I say this with a grain of salt because I know it sounds like those kind of like red pill guru, like alpha, sigma, male grind set vibes. But working for a company is not the vibe. Like working for someone else is not like, I don't know, maybe for some people working a 9 to 5 is fun if you enjoy it. And it's good for the experience for sure. But long term, I don't think it's necessarily the path to wealth, if that's something you're seeking, and also for happiness, because, you know, everyone has something that they want to share and express and work on. And if you work for a company, you will be assigned tasks and you will not have freedom of your own time, your own schedule, and the work you're going to be working on and the people you'll be working on. So if you're a student or if you're young, now is the time to really, you know, be a bit selfish and then ask yourself, what is it I want to do on my own that I don't need like necessarily like a lot of people to do or to help me with that goal. It can be a side project that you can just do on your own. It could be a hobby that you just, you know, you cultivate on the side during school or after school, or if you're working, it's after your 9 to 5, after your shift, you keep watering those seeds and those plants, and it will eventually grow into something more. And I say this because it is something that, you know, I've thought about many times during my time at MIT. Trust me, it was a dream studying there and being exposed to like all these, you know, amazing resources and facilities and people. But at some point, like anything, it becomes part of your normal life. Like you get imposter syndrome, but then it becomes like part of who you are. And so you kind of get used to it, you know, you take it for granted. And then all the same things that you've had in the past, like anxiety about the future, or anxiety about your past, or anxiety about your career and if you made the right choice. And, you know, those stay and they keep coming. And it was surprising for me to learn that talking to many, many people in different programs, same age, younger, older, postdocs, like that's something worth mentioning for this video, is that my roommate in my dorm, he studied chemistry. He's from China and he's a postdoc. He's like in his early 30s. So he did a PhD and he's working for a lab. And I almost never saw him. He was always coming home or back home at like 2 or 3 a.m. God knows why he was always late. I think he was probably at the lab, but I don't really know. We rarely saw each other, but he was always coming back home late. He was always in a rush, always looking stressed. The first time we met, we had a small talk and he he told me how he doesn't suggest or he doesn't recommend me doing a PhD or staying in academia or doing a postdoc or working for a lab, that I was young, I had energy, creativity, and that you should embrace that and do something outside of academia. Because first of all, they don't pay that well when you're like a postdoc with a PhD, even at MIT. I think he even has multiple PhDs. I don't know. It was very strange. But that was my first impression of like my first week at MIT coming to Boston. And then the first postdoc I meet, he tells me that. And it's not the first time. I met many other people. Some obviously were really happy with what they were studying. Don't get me wrong. It's just one example. But a lot of people, very intelligent, very talented, accomplished, coming from Harvard, multiple masters, PhD, working at a lab, directing their own projects. But they still have their doubts. They still have stress. They still feel like they're bounded to the system, that they're working under someone else. They have a superior. They have to meet deadlines. They have to come up with ideas. They're overworked, underpaid. And that's MIT. That's like one of the best universities in the world. So that exposure really showed me, or really taught me, that like it might sound good on paper, but then ultimately, if you really want to attain freedom or happiness or wealth, you kind of have to be willing to take the risk and to do things that no one has ever done before, and to pave your own way, to pave your own path. That is the only way. And that might be through content creation, exposing yourself out there, starting a business. You know, it has to be something that's risky and that no one has done before. And so that's my message to you. I think this is a common message. That's a common theme in my videos, is I try to encourage you guys to take risks, take entrepreneurial risks. The word entrepreneurial, I think, holds a lot of a negative connotation. You know, it's associated with like greed and money and that kind of stuff. But what it just means is doing things on your own merit, with your own merit, and starting something from scratch and providing value and wealth to others, and job creation, all that stuff. But anyways, all this to say, it was a year at MIT. It was amazing. The people are great. The Boston is a great city. If ever you have any questions about, more specifics, I try to kind of lay out the main vibes that I've felt so far. Obviously, there's like so many stories and so many things that happen and projects I've worked on, but it would just drag the video too long. But yeah, I have no regrets. I will not drop out. I will continue my 3.5 years here. But it did pass very fast. I have to say, like, for me to say that 1 year at MIT passed is pretty crazy. So yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Apart from that, I'm going to, like I mentioned earlier, I will try to be more consistent. My goal is to do like a video a day, just because it's summer and I don't have to worry about courses anymore. Like kind of breaking my schedule. So now I can just like focus on that. And also like, I'm just someone who prefers like warmer weather. So, and I get more inspired when it's nice outside. So it will probably, something will happen with that. But yeah, for this week, it'll just be like a week of meeting old friends, family members, old coworkers, going on coffee chats. So I will probably debrief some of those conversations and make it into some videos. But yeah, I'm happy to see you guys again. or at least make these for you guys. I kind of missed talking to my camera and sharing some thoughts in my room alone. But yeah, that's it. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're doing well. You're taking care of yourself. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Take care and peace.